Sean. All right, we've been unmuted. Welcome to the YouTube, Facebook, and now TikTok Live. For those people who don't know what TikTok is, that's what the cool kids do now. And as every time that we start off, we say, welcome. We are the Living in Coastal Virginia YouTube channel. Also just kind of local real estate badass. I'm gonna put that out there, put it out into the world. I got my man Sean across the way from here. Sean, say hey everybody.
What's up?
If you see anything drone related, you see anything videography related, Sean is the man. He makes me look good. Matter of fact, look at the camera difference between my camera and his camera. That's It's just so crispy, so warm.
The nice camera.
Yeah. I want to say, Sean, you look better in person than you do on camera. And then, as every live, we also do a liveation during a live. So this is Ironclad. It is absolutely delightful. Let's see if I can get it to focus. Boom, there we go. This one is been sitting in some maple syrup casks, and so it has a little sweetness to it. And this is delightful. Mr. Thomas Fickley, who you guys don't know who he is, but I know who he is. Lovely man, and introduced it to me, so I'm going to give myself a little glug here. And Sean, there you go, sir. You pour yourself as much as you'd like. And since I do most of the talking, you'll probably finish before I do. So tonight, we are going to be covering waterfront properties, and not just neighborhoods that I think are fantastic to focus on, but also some things that you need to think about when you're doing waterfront properties, some things you need to pay attention to. Some of these things are a little bit nuanced, meaning it's going to be a little different for each property. But if you have questions as we go through this, please pop them down in the chat. Sean's monitoring a software called Melon, so it'll put YouTube and Facebook live questions in there, and then TikTok will be directly on the platform. But if you have any questions whatsoever, even if it's not anything to do with waterfront properties, it just has to do with real estate, that's what. Or, hey Dan, what kind of beard oil do you use? Welcome to answer this. We're open to those questions
Here.
Yeah, I may not answer them, but I'm open. I'm open to all questions. You said something there, Sean.
No.
Oh, okay. All right. So waterfront properties. So let's pull open Google Maps. So if you are not familiar with this area, Living in Coastal Virginia YouTube channel covers the Coastal Virginia area. All right, so if you're looking on the map here, you can see here's the line for North Carolina. And then you've got the Cape here. You've got what's called generally the peninsula and what's called the South Side. Now, depending on who you talk to, and I'm sure somebody would argue with me. Oh, yeah, Sean, where are you watching from today? If you're on, 4 people are on, where are you watching from today? Are you local? Are you a relocation? Please feel free to say hello in the chat. Love to hear from you guys and hear from where around the world. We've had people as far as like Germany. I think we've had some people from Brussels, Belgium, Canada, Hawaii, Alaska, all over the place. And so I'd love to hear from where you're at. Maybe what we'll do eventually is get myself like a little dartboard in the back so we can put little pins on where everybody's. That'd be kind of a cool thing to do. All right, so coastal Virginia area. So I generally tend to focus mostly here on the south side, but technically, this area. There's a Buckrow Beach is right here, which is a great little beach, and then obviously you can have a waterfront property here on the.
Got a Napa Valley on TikTok here.
Napa Valley? Dang! All right, you coming to the East Coast, or are you just tuning in because TikTok sent you the algorithm to the live here? Let me get a little sip. All right, Napa Valley, East Coast versus West Coast. Now, I'll give credit where credit is due. When it comes to like ultra luxury neighborhoods or ultra luxury homes properties, Coastal Virginia has some cool stuff, but it just doesn't hold a candle to like Billionaires Row and Hollywood and Beverly Hills and that type of thing. Like the most expensive listing that we had sell in Hampton Roads here in the last couple of years was $10.3 million, and it was a gorgeous property in Bird Neck Point, absolutely beautiful. I think Mr. Barker bought that property. Pardon me. So, waterfront properties, there's a lot of waterfront here. We have the Elizabeth River here. We have the James River. Then we have the Chesapeake Bay. And then when we're looking at waterfront property, a lot of times people, they'll look for property here along these kind of inlets here along the river. But to be honest, it's not that it wouldn't be fun. It's not that going on the boat in here wouldn't be fun. Paddleboard and
If you're
kayaking.
watching on TikTok, by the way, we have a screen share going on YouTube. If you want to hop over to YouTube, you can, or stay on TikTok. You
Either one.
Miss that little aspect.
Yep, either one. But when I'm looking at waterfront property, like I'll give you kind of my personal take on it. My wife and I live in Norfolk currently, and mostly that's because a lot of our community is here, our church community is here. But in the next couple of years, we probably will be considering a move to something on the water. And when I choose on the water, I could choose to go on the water here somewhere in like Larchmont or Algonquin or Lock Haven, River Point. And again, it's not like it wouldn't be fun to jet ski and paddleboard and tube in here. But if I want the greatest access to waterfront properties, and I think they have kind of uninhibited, because you do have the port here, you do have the naval base here, you do have the yard here, and there's a lot of industrial in this section. And so it's just not as beautiful or recreational as the areas in Virginia Beach. What's up?
So our Napa Valley guy said anything for 450. So maybe if you jump on the YouTube, we're gonna do like those kind of questions maybe at the end.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's a great question. If you'll make a note of it too, if I get
you stick around, we'll answer it at the end. I'll make a note.
Yeah, just very, very quickly. Yes, there are waterfront options at 450. They tend to basically be condos. If you're looking for waterfront single family, then it is basically the lot, and it's in a terrible location. But there are condos. There are plenty of condos or townhomes that have waterfront views that are condos. I always say in real estate, you're at each price point. Whether some people use it's like price, size, or location. I don't think that fully encapsulates it. I think when you're looking at price points, whether it's 200,000, 600,000, or 6 million, you have 4 general categories that your dollars are going towards. You have size, location, amenities, and condition. Size, location, amenities, and condition. 1,000 square feet is different than 10,000. Location, Virginia Beach oceanfront's different than out in the middle of nowhere, Suffolk. Not to make fun of people in Suffolk. Suffolk's lovely. Amenities, things like Norfolk, very close to the beach. Woo, East Beach, yeah, baby. Yeah, man, I love East Beach. Big fan. We'll cover that too here in a second. Where was I at? Condition or amenities? Amenities. Laminate flooring is different than hardwood, which is different than vinyl. Those are amenities when you're going up and down the scale of niceness. Granite countertops versus like Formica or something like that. And then condition. Well, something that's brand new. Brand new carpet is versus dated, old, and aged, and has cat pee on it. That's kind of what you're trading off in between. And every price point you're trading off. And so at 450, yeah, you could probably get a waterfront view, but it's probably going to be a little bit smaller. It's probably going to be a condo, so you're going to share walls. There are some stuff that's nicer, but if you want 2 or 3 bedrooms, it might not be as nice inside. If you're willing to go down to 1 or 2 bedrooms, it might be a little bit nicer inside. And then you also have condo fees on top of that you have to consider. Okay, so when I'm looking at waterfront, we've got this place in East Beach here. Plenty of people that live along here in the Little Creek and kind of Lake Whitehurst. But the nice thing, or the unfortunate part about Lake Whitehurst, is you don't have access to getting out. Right, you're got some landlocked water here, and then you also have the airport here, which is unfortunate. So same thing here with Lake Smith. And then there are even some sections here around Little Neck and Great Neck where the inlet. Here's a really good example. You do have access. Let me change over to satellite. These are technically waterfront properties right here, but you can't get a boat. You notice how there's a severe lacking of docks here? Well, there's no sense in putting a dock in for a boat lift if you can't actually get out. You can even see the color differences here. And so you can kind of generally assume that when you see docks and boathouses, well, then there's probably deep water access and you can get access there. So I just think when it comes to general access to recreational activities, fishing, tubing, skiing, getting out here, going through the inlet out to the actual Chesapeake Bay, and maybe even going out into the ocean, these areas tend to have the best waterfront properties. And this is probably somewhere in here is probably where Rachel and I will eventually get a place at. So let's start with like one of my favorite neighborhoods. We've got Broad Bay. We're not Broad Bay, Bay Colony. What's up?
Christian. He's saying we should have more viewers.
I know, right? Yeah. What the heck? Well, we've only been doing lives, 6 times or so.
I think this is
and
only
it's
our fourth.
Is fourth or something like that.
Fourth
So
and fifth.
fourth, and the channel's what, 2.5 years old, or maybe a little under 2.5 years old. Some of our content still gets 100, 200 views a day, and other stuff only gets 1 or 2 views a day. But those are a little more niched videos. I don't think.
Right. This is our seventh, I think.
Okay. I just don't think that there's necessarily a community enough around, that we haven't built up enough community around getting that regular, because we only go live every other week. I guess if I went like every other day, I probably would build it faster. But it gets kind of exhausting trying to take up every single evening. It's 8 o'clock here on Tuesday, and my family would kill me if I did that. Gosh, so good.
It's really good. Yeah, I just had my first sip.
Delightful. Okay, so Bay Colony. A lot of reasons I love Bay Colony. One, I'm going to pull up the residential map here. So this is the MLS. This is the system that I use when I'm looking at properties or searching for clients. And if I go in here, actually, let's just look at this one that's on the market right now. So $3.6 million, 6 bedrooms, looks like 5 full bathrooms, and then 3 of those are en suites and one's 1 half bath. 5,200 square foot, right? Let's just look at that view. Oh, so freaking beautiful. This is a fantastic area. Partially because the majority of this neighborhood is above the floodplain. You can see a little bit of the elevation rise right here. And so you have deep water access with some amazing views in a highly coveted neighborhood. Man, it's gorgeous. Look at these nautical themes in here. This is beautiful. Not my taste in kitchen, but oh well, it is what it is. You go in there and you can change it at 3.6 million if that's something you want. Let me cruise through these photos. I want to see if they have more. Yeah, I mean, that's just beautiful. So if I look over here on the flood map, what I see is you can kind of see flood zone X and flood zone AE. You see how tight that, see how tight that flood zone is right there to the border? It means that the elevation change here is decently steep, and these properties in general are far out of the flood zone. And so you have the opportunity potentially to be in a gorgeous waterfront property. You can see these have pools on them, and not be in a flood zone, not be too worried about the risk of it flooding on a regular occasion. X usually means that it's not in a flood zone that's going to flood or a flooding event typically only happens 1 in 500 years. X500 is slightly more regular. And then AE means that it's not likely to happen within 100 years, or it has a flooding event 1 every 100 years. That's kind of the basics. I'm sure Mike, my buddy in flood insurance, would be like, Dan, it's not properly technical, but that's ish. All right, so what you'll see is if I zoom out, I can see that see how this neighborhood is all in AE? There's quite a few properties. These are just a little bit lower lying. Am I saying that right?
I think so.
Lower lying areas?
Sounds right to me.
Yeah, it feels like it's repetitive there. And so this is kind of one of the reasons I just love Bay Colony. One, it's just a gorgeous neighborhood. You go into this neighborhood 5, 6 o'clock at night, and everybody's out walking their dogs. Very friendly. Just a highly coveted neighborhood. What you tend to find is let's see if I can zoom out just a little bit more. Nope, it's not going to show it. What you tend to find is that as you come into these like inlets, more properties tend to be in the flood zone themselves. So let me zoom in here. You'll see how the flood zone comes up in a little bit further. And that's just kind of how creek beds and floodplains tend to work. You can see that as you see these are a little bit tighter. Come on, load up for me. If I go over here into Allenton, it's not one to load. There we go. Come on. You see, I'm not sure why it's doing that. You see how basically the floodplain comes in here. So not only in a lot of ways do these properties have a lower likelihood of access to deep water, but they also tend to be, not always, but tend to be the ones that are more likely to flood. So just something to pay attention to there. I guess on TikTok they can't see the screen, can they, at all? Yeah, it sucks. Well, maybe we'll figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
So it's probably just like, this guy's boring. He's just sitting there talking random nonsense.
It's all right.
So that kind of goes into, again, look how tight these lines are right here, right against the seawall. And you notice how every single one of these properties has a pier and a dock for deep water access and putting their boat. So let me go back over to maps. Let me kind of hit another neighborhood I just think is awesome, Bird Neck Point. One of the reasons I love Bird Neck Point is one, basically every single house in this neighborhood, for the most part, and Google Maps is amazing. Look at that. I should bring up Google Earth. It's a little bit more comprehensive, but that's okay. We'll do that on the next one. The nice thing about Bird Neck Point, one, I really like it because there's really only two main entrances into this neighborhood. Right here on Cardinal and one here on Oriole. And to be honest, if you're driving here along Laskin, you can drive right by these entrances and never even see them if you don't know that they're there. So one, it tends to be very, very private. There's no need to go in and out of this neighborhood unless you're going to the Cavalier Golf and Yacht Club. So if you're playing golf, if you're going to the yacht club for a wedding or going out to eat with a friend, or if you've got a big ass boat down here on the yacht, you can see how big some of these are. I mean, look at this monster right here. There are some big houses in here. By the way, that $10.3 million property was this one right here. Super beautiful. I don't know, Sean, do you have any of the drone footage from that? Can you pull that up? Okay. And so what I guess what I was trying to say is nearly every single house, and you can kind of see, is either located on the golf course, on the water, or in some cases, freaking both. Like, look at this guy. On the golf course and on the water. Like, amazing. The houses in here absolutely gorgeous. Probably one of my favorite neighborhoods here and here. And you can see that Bay Colony comes in here into Princess Anne. What's the word I'm looking for? You know, it's always, you get put on the spot, and then it's like, as soon as I hop off live, I would remember exactly what it is, but for whatever reason, it's on a live, so my brain escapes me. Oh, I had this up for a reason. I don't know about you guys, but this is probably one of my favorite sound mixes that I'm listening to right now. So 80s synth wave, chill wave 2023. This is fantastic. I've been really enjoying this one to focus and get work done. Okay, back over here. All right. Zoom out, zoom in. Pick on this one. All right, it doesn't matter. All right, let me go back over here to Waterfront. So another one of the waterfront properties, obviously, is the north end. Now, on the north end, you got a whole row, and it's just going to be this front row, obviously, that is facing the ocean front. And there are quite a few cases. Let me see if I can find one of these. Well, let's just pick this one. This one's a monster. This one's still for sale, $12 million, right? And that's your view every single day. Incredible, incredible views. You are way off of the oceanfront, right? Look at all of the, what's the word I'm looking for? Seagrass, not seagrass. Why am I blanking, Sean? The freaking stuff in the sand. Why can't I think of it? I'll think of it here in a second. But there's a big, thick pad here of buffer between the ocean and your home, you know, protecting the home. And you'll have a lot of this in the Outer Banks as well. But I mean, this is going to be your view, and you'll pay a premium to have that view. Let me see if I can find another quick.
I got that bird neck if you want to show it.
Yeah, go ahead and pull it up. Give it a little clickaroo there. So this is that neighborhood right there in that point. Gosh, it's beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. While I'm talking about that one, Sean, can you put maybe Bird Neck Point YouTube video on in the background?
Yeah.
This is why it's helpful to have somebody on the background to help do all. I mean, look at that pool. It's a freaking resort style pool. That roof, by the way, is 100% Buckingham slate. That is expensive to do. When this guy built out the property, he really spared no expense. It was pretty exceptional. All right, let's see if I can find another. Well, it's not really doing justice.
Dunes. Someone was trying to help you.
What's the name of? Thinking of the name of the. There's a specific name for it. I'll think of it here in a second. It's not reeds.
Keep going.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna sit here and sit here and.
Also, our boy Christian here. I've been chatting with him, and he is an ODU and Regent.
Oh, nice.
Which is.
Went to ODU myself.
And I graduated.
And Sean graduated from Regent. So my degree was in civil engineering with a minor in construction management. Actually, I went over today. Quick, side story. I went over today, Sean, to one of my professors' houses. They're looking at selling their house and buying another house over in Williamsburg.
Oh, cool.
And so it's long way around. The guy who was teaching me statics and stuff like that. And now I'm helping him buy a house. Kind of cool.
Nice.
Yep. And then Sean went to Regent. Sean, you would tell him what you went to school for?
So I went to school for cinema television, so kind of what I'm doing now.
Yeah. Cool. Let me bounce back real quick, and I want to kind of look at this. So I have some notes here that I took when I'm looking at waterfront property. Obviously, the advantages are the views. If you're on the ocean front, it's you don't have a dock there, and so plopping it in a boat's not going to happen. But if you're on the inland side, you're able to plop in a boat and have quick access to your boat immediately. And so there are plenty of locations, whether it's Norfolk, Chesapeake, or Virginia Beach. Again, Virginia Beach, in my opinion, is just there's nothing that trumps the waterfront properties that are there. But that is a massive appeal to waterfront is having those views, having access to the water immediately, having maybe a little bit of private space to yourself. And that's why people tend to flock there. That's why they tend to save their pennies, or if they're looking at moving up or they're aspiring to something, they're looking for waterfront properties. Now, what is the downside of that? Well, you've got potential for flooding. Obviously, it costs more money. It usually costs more money to maintain, especially if you're going to be having a dock or a seawall. Erosion is sort of like time. It just marches on and it keeps on whether you like it or not. And so part of your money, part of your budgeting as you're going up in purchase price, a larger percentage is going to have to be allocated towards the maintaining and keeping of that, especially when it comes to salt. Salt is going to erode things like nails and rust out light fixtures and hinges and doors. Anything that is metal is not going to respond well to that salt water. And now you can buy expensive things that are resistant to that, but still over time, everything is going to degrade a little bit faster. So there's like this rule of thumb that people will typically use when you're looking at buying a waterfront property. Or not a waterfront property, a regular property, and they say, hey, when you're going to buy a house, somewhere between half a percentage point to a percentage point or more of the value of the home. So on a $400,000 house, that would be anywhere between $2,000 to $4,000 a year that you need to allocate towards maintaining and repairing things in that home. And I would make a very strong argument that if you're going to buy a home, maybe it's older, maybe it hasn't been as well maintained, maybe if it's on the seawater, that you're probably going to have to allocate somewhere between 2 or even 3% of the property, the purchase price of that property towards ongoing maintenance of that property. And so that's just something that you need to keep in mind if buying waterfront is something that you're doing for the very first time. The other thing I think when I think of like the disadvantages, when you're making the purchase, the due diligence period absolutely must be done well. I kind of make this analogy that like if you're going to go buy a used Camry, they're built for reliance. They're built to be consistent. They're built that if you have a young teenage owner, that it's probably going to withstand a decent amount. But you go buy a Ferrari or a Rolls Royce that has not been taken care of, to get that thing back to spec is going to cost a shit ton of money. Sorry for the people at home who have kids. I'll try to cost less. Once you get to know me, you know that on occasion some of those things slip out, so I apologize. So it's just something that you need to pay attention to. So you want to make sure that your contingency period is only short if you absolutely must be. The only way you're going to win this property is that's the only way you're going to be competitive, is if you have a shortened contingency period to do inspections. We are in a buyer beware state here in the state of Virginia, and so the majority of the discovery of what needs to be done on that property is on your shoulders as the buyer. There are certain things that the seller has to disclose, but you want to make sure that you give yourself a long enough contingency period. So I have someone that right now is buying a piece of property. It's not a luxury home or anything, but it happens to have part of the lot that's in the CBPA, or part of the lot is regulated by the CBPA, the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act. And because it's preserved by them, and part of it's in the wetlands, they have to do a study, and they have to do an impact study on putting a concrete pad in so they can park something there. And it takes time. And so if your contingency period says, well, I'm only going to do it for this long, you just may not have enough time to do that properly. So you just want to be careful with that. Again, unless you have bought and sold homes on waterfront before and you kind of know what you're getting yourself into, or you have a great agent to help you through that process. Okay. One of the things you definitely want to, my ex is a Cox grad, grew up in Great Neck.
It's a lot of good neighborhoods around there. He was saying all the ones across from Bubba's. That's where you can see.
Yeah. Bubba's is a fantastic
area.
area.
Across, or is that that's not Baylor Island? What's the one that's right across from Bubba's? Is that I'm blanking on the name of the neighborhood over there. That's the.
Are you thinking this one right here? Or my screen not being shared?
There we go.
Are you thinking about Bay Island right here?
Yes, Bay Island. That's
Yeah.
what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, this is pretty fantastic, and you can even see that there's some docks in here, and there's even spots in here. If you zoom in, you'll see people have boats in here as well.
Yeah. That area there.
Yeah, I mean, chicks. I mean, when I'm kind of broad stroke labeling here, I'm looking at kind of this says Chicks Beach right here.
Todd has arrived on TikTok.
Mr. Todd Collins is on.
He showered you with some money.
Oh, what a guy! You know, I don't care what the rest of the group says about him. He's all right with me. Well, Todd, I don't know if you're drinking some libations. Let me show the Ironclad here. We're dipping into some Ironclad bourbon this evening, so part of the process. Todd, by the way, if you guys are into social media and learning about social media, Todd Collins, you need to give him a follow on TikTok, Instagram, all the major places. He knows more than he should. Than any human should on anything to do with the TikTok algorithm, the Instagram. So we coach with him personally on how to grow things, and so I would say over the last 9 months we wouldn't be where we're at without him. So cheers to you, good sir.
He's sipping a club soda in Florida.
Florida. He must be doing a conference or a talk.
Nice.
Thanks for tuning in, Todd. Love you, brother. Shit. Now I'm off of track. What was I talking about?
We were just talking with Chris about Bay Island.
Yeah. So, Chicks Beach, broad stroke Chicks Beach. You know, you have kind of the east and west section here, and so this is kind of broad stroke. Just had a stroke. Chicks Beach, and this is a fantastic area. If you want an area away from a lot of the tourists, this is a great spot to check out. All right. Let me go back over to my list to make sure I'm not missing things. What are we looking for? One of the things that during the contingency period that you kind of want to pay attention to is you want to have a good dock or pier and riprap person because the repair of those can be very, very costly. And the difference between something that's made out of metal, something that's made out of wood, something that is made out of riprap and stone, those cost very different costs. Or you can do a natural seawall. All of those are done a little bit differently, and some of them are far more expensive than others. And so if something has been let go, like if it's falling over and eroding, going back and fixing that can be quite expensive. And so if you don't make that part of your contingency process, you could buy a property and then potentially get into yourself into some hot water or into a very costly mistake. Another one is just making sure that you actually have access to deep water access. I had a client, or not a client, I had an agent, a friend of mine, who she was selling their house and buying another one. Actually, they bought the house down in Sandbridge that we did a listening tour on. If you haven't seen that one, that was really, really good. 2.2 million, is that what it was for, Sean? Something like that. We hired a voice actor who played Morgan Freeman. He did an okay job. I think it sounds sort of like a discount Morgan Freeman, to be honest. But he did okay for the money that we paid him. But they bought that house because the house that they sold, they bought sight unseen, and the agent that they helped buy it with, which did end up listing the property, told them that it was deep water access, and they did it very quickly. Back to that contingency period, you need to make sure that when it says deep water access, it actually is deep water access. Because that guy bought that house with the intention to be able to have a boat, and he couldn't do it. So just something to pay attention to there. Let's see here. I'm going to skip past the financing. That is not something that is my specialty yet. Maybe what we'll do is we'll bring on a person that's specialty in that. When it comes to flood zones in general. So let me kind of give some more generalities here. Let me go back over to this one that I was showing. Actually, let me show a different one here. Let's do this one. In Little Neck Road. Another great little view. Look at that. There's the inlet right there with the bridge, and you can come in right here. Gorgeous. Let me go over to flood map. Let me zoom in. You see what I mean about it's interesting that these houses out here have a tendency to have a much tend to be out of the flood zone, but you come in here and there's more that tend to be in the flood zone. So you can see the footprint of the house right here. Now, these are not perfect maps, but if you're working with me, I'll obviously send you a screenshot when you're looking for these. And then we're also going to reach out to Brandon Kopp, who's been on the live a few times, who Tidewater Brokers Insurance, to run a policy. Obviously, the higher that policy, the more and more risk that the insurance companies think or associate with that property. But what tends to happen is as long as the footprint of the house is not in AE, it is likely that the insurance policy is going to be low or none. If the footprint of the house happens to be in the flood zone, even if it's just the tip of the corner, the flood insurance goes up pretty astronomically. So like the house I have here in Larchmont, we're not on the water in Larchmont, but the house I have in Larchmont, we have a basement, and our flood insurance every year, I think it's like $2,200 a year. And that's just something, because we have a basement, I have to allocate funds towards those. So when we're looking at these, again, you just kind of want to do your due diligence. You want to make sure that the house you're buying, so here's a good example, one that's out here, where the majority of the house, you can kind of see, is in here in flood zone X, but there's a certain portion of the pool in the house right here. The flood insurance here is going to be more expensive. If that's something that you're a risk-averse person, if that's something that you're nervous about, you want to make sure that you understand this prior to pulling the trigger and closing on that property, and making sure you go over all of the little nitty-gritty details with your insurance provider. Again, Brandon Kopp with Tidewater Insurance Brokers is our preferred person. He's amazing. I wish he was on, because he's not just a great insurance guy, he's just a great dude all around. All right, we'll go next list here. We talked a little bit about maintenance, taxes. We're going to skip past that for right now. HOA fees or waterfront properties. Really, you're not going to have homeowners association unless it has to do with the neighborhood. So, and that typically has to do with wildlife. All right, so here's just one in general. My wife, my lovely, beautiful bride, Rachel Ann Inman. You came at my suggestions on my home screen. Oh, nice, cool, man. Good to hear from you, Christian. We go live every other week, and then we actually have two channels. We have one called Living in Coastal Virginia. What's the other one called, Sean?
That's just Inman Home Services.
Yeah, Inman Home Services. So one is specifically to talking about and learning about the area, and the other one is specifically for listing tours. And so there's some reasons behind that on how the YouTube algorithm works and why we're building out two different channels. And the other piece is that over time, like one of my buddies, Brad McCallum up in Canada, he has a YouTube channel specifically for listings. And the dude gets crazy amounts of traffic on there. And so he's able to get the seller more exposure than just the MLS, because the YouTube algorithm, as like Christian here found us because it was suggested, and he subscribed. So obviously he goes, oh, this is something I kind of want to pay attention to. If you own a YouTube channel and it gets that attention, this is why YouTubers like Mr. Beast, Mark Rober, and any other YouTuber that has a little bit of a following can get brand deals. It's because you're getting them more exposure than what they would have otherwise. And so part of the reason for building out the YouTube listing channel is so that we can get, when we're working with people selling their home, we can get them more exposure than any other real estate agent that is out there, specifically to people looking at real estate in Hampton Roads or Coastal Virginia. Yeah. And that's the purpose behind that. So give us a follow over on that channel too. We don't have a separate TikTok or Instagram handle for that right now. Everything is combined, but eventually it will also be separated. Again, if you're just joining now, we are Dan Inman. I think I put in my Instagram.
He is Dan Inman.
I am Dan Inman. I put in my Instagram handle, I think the best damn realtor in Coastal Virginia. Self-appointed, absolutely. And I run a YouTube channel. The bourbon is coming in strong. There we go. We run a YouTube channel talking about the area. Tonight we are covering things about waterfront properties and some of my favorite areas for waterfront properties. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to pop them down there in the chat, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. All right. Wildlife. So quick side story. My wife used to run hotels down at the oceanfront, and she ran the Holiday Inn Express, which was like made specifically for families. That's actually where we got married. The Lyons family, who owns and runs the hotel, is a fantastic family that she worked for many years, and we were very blessed to work with them. But the one of the she always came back with these crazy stories of people complaining about things, and this lady Sean comes up to her and was like demanding a discount on one of her rooms because the seagulls were too present. It's like there's too many seagulls, and she was asking Rachel to figure out a way to make the seagulls less. And it's kind of like, well, ma'am, you are on the ocean front.
They were here long before.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we don't have very specific seagull rays to make them go away. Those are called BB guns, and they're not allowed here on the ocean front. But anyway, that's just kind of funny. In my pre-retirement life, I was a lawyer, also developed real estate in the 90s and 2000s. My business closed and the market crashed to it. Oh, dude, that sucks. I'm sorry to hear about that in 2008. Man, there's a lot of heartache and pain. One of the things I think I'll hit on here towards the end is a little bit about our market. Let me pull up. If you're a data nerd like me, and what I would actually say is that people who are able to buy waterfront properties tend to be people who pay attention to what's going on in the world, and they tend to manage their money, and they tend to want to know how to make informed decisions. I don't think that there is a better national data source for the general person than Black Knight. And they put out what's called a mortgage monitor on a regular occasion. And if you go to your report here, one of the things I would like to point out, because this one just came out here not that long ago, and there's a bunch of nerdy details in here. I'm going to skip past them. Right. This one right here. Okay. So this is one of the charts that they put out.
Not sure what Matthew's asking us.
What kind of Burbank? Yeah, could you rephrase that?
Oh, bourbon, there we go.
Oh, bourbon? One moment. Delightful, delicious. My good buddy Thomas Fickley turned me on to it. It is not the cheapest one for sure, but it is very, very tasty. Ironclad.
I concur.
Yes, very, very nice. And this one was in maple syrup cast, so it's got like a little extra tinge of sweetness, if you will. Messing with my mic there. All right. So if you're paying attention to just some quick kind of data points, like I had a client recently say, hey, could we offer XYZ on this listing? And it had only been on the market for a few days. And I said, well, we can, but the average days on market right now is 11 days on market in that area at the price point this guy was looking at. And what's interesting to me is that even properties that are in the luxury price points, if they are priced right, are selling and selling decently quickly. And so the reason I bring up Black Knight right here is this is kind of some major MSAs or markets that from the change in home price from the 22 peak to today. And so you can see, yes, there are markets that are down, like this I think it's Austin right there, negative 12%. Over here in California, you can see quite a few, negative 13%. Right up here in Seattle, negative almost 12%. But there are plenty of markets, ours included. Let me go back over here. Back down, right here. However, 8 markets, including Louisville, Kansas City, Virginia Beach, Oklahoma City, Philadelphia, Hartford, Cincinnati, and Miami, are back to peak levels. Right now, between 300 and 600,000, again, waterfront property is not in that category unless you're looking at condos, is 13 days on market. Now, is it the chaos that was 2021 and early 2022 of like 5-6 days on market? No, but that's still very, very aggressive. And we have basically seen zero retraction on price in our area because we are sitting at about a fourth of what the inventory we would typically see. And there are still enough buyers that need to move in our area that are moving. And so the reality is that any product service on the planet comes down to 2 things, supply and demand. So when you hear people on TikTok or the news saying that everything is crashing, one, I would be wary of anybody who's projecting and says that they know something is going to happen. I don't know if you've been along. I mean, I'm almost 40, but I was just lamenting to Sean and somebody else the other day. It's like if you pay attention to the news, and I went back and read some headlines. It's like in the 90s, the world was ending. In the early 2000s, the world was ending. From 2000 to 2010, the world was ending. From 2010 to 2022, the world is ending. It's like the world is always ending. Now, are there realities that we have to take into consideration? Absolutely. But until we see a change in the imbalance of supply in our area, I don't see it happening quickly. So when I heard people saying, oh yeah, we're going to see a 10, 20, 30% correction within a 12-month period of time, I'm like, I don't see it. The correction in our marketplace in 2008, because we don't have the same underwriting practices that were going on in 2008, it took from 2007 all the way to 2012. 5 full years with shitty underwriting practices for the market to fully correct. So could we see a correction? Yes, but based on the data that I'm looking at, I just don't see it happening. What I think was probably going to happen, as long as underwriting practices remain strong and we're not giving mortgages out that shouldn't exist, we're just going to have a continual conversation around housing and affordability. And unfortunately, the Fed is only pulling the trigger that they know how to pull, which is the interest rates. Supply is not really being addressed. They could go and do some type of first-time homebuyer program, some type of discount, some type of equity or equality-based first-time homebuyer assistance type of thing. But all you're doing, and I'm not trying to argue for or against that, what I'm trying to say is all you're doing is you're taking someone who can't buy a home and making them now a buyer. Well, when you increase demand, what do prices do? They go up if supply is unchanged. To kind of really quickly drive home my point here, and I apologize if you're not a data guy, but let me, of course, it logged me out. I'll do it really quickly here. Log in. Oh, it's actually working for me really fast. Go down here to Insight Trends. To drive my point home here, because I think this is really important to understand. Every market's place is going to be different, but this is our area, Hampton Roads. You see this run up from 2004 all the way to 2007, or early 2006, mid 2006. This is more aggressive than the run up that we've had, right? Earlier run up. So when we have, more aggressive run up than here. When you have this aggressive run up, one of two things or a mixture of the two have to happen. Either supply has to go down or demand has to go up drastically. You just don't have a run up in prices just randomly. There has to be a whole bunch of people that want the thing in limited supply, or supply goes down to nil and the same amount of buyers remains in the marketplace. If I go over to active listings, because it shows us how many listings, wait for a second, it's going to load. Over that period of time from 2004 to 2007, inventory quadrupled. It went up fourfold. Now your brain, your alarm bell should be going off going, wait a minute, Dan, you just said supply had to go down for prices to go up that quickly. And I go, yes, that's how freaking retarded demand was. Demand was so ridiculous. There were so many people unqualified looking to buy homes that even though inventory quadrupled, pricing did what it did. Waterfront in Hampton.
The second half is more what I was.
I'll get to that in here in a second, Christian.
He's talking about the collapse there. Buyers would be thinking.
Yep. Yeah. So I think anyone who's saying crash and just without any type of data behind it, I go, okay, yeah, fair enough. There's indicators showing that a recession is going on. Although if you look back at the last 6 recessions, the majority of them, housing prices went up. Yes, if job losses happen, that people can't pay their mortgages, foreclosures and foreclosures will go up. But if you're looking at active, it's nowhere near. I don't want to go too far into the data here. We did that on another one, and we'll probably do another one here in the future. But my point here is, if I go over here and I look at supply today, right now, look at how supply tends or active listings tends to go up starting in January all the way to summer. Starting in January all to summer. Starting in January all the way to summer. January to summer, January to summer. Now, where are we at today? January was right here. February, March. It's gone down, not up. I do not see in our area a price correction happening. Inventory is too stinking low and demand is too high, even with interest rates where they're at today. If you are a data person and you want to know how to track mortgage rates, Mortgage News Daily is a great website to do that. All right.
Got some questions here. Did you want to?
Cool. Yeah. Go ahead. Let me see. Make sure I didn't miss anything. I already kind of covered CPPA. We've already covered a bunch. If you're looking at buying land and doing new construction, your builder should be very, very familiar with CPPA. We have a couple of great builders that we've worked with in the past. I'll just go ahead and name off a few. Strickland Homes is a great builder to work with. Stephen Alexander Homes, Mr. Quick, builds an exceptional property. Bill Schneider does an exceptional. Schneider Homes does an exceptional homes. There's a couple other ones, but those are probably some of my favorites. All right, let's answer some questions.
All right. So we have.
If you're just tuning in, we just Matthew, if you will email me, Dan at InmanHomeServices.com, or I think info, whatever it says on the channel, either one of those. My wife, who is a local lender, actually did a panel with the Virginia Beach and Norfolk regulatory authorities on short-term rentals. And it'll answer a lot of those questions. Virginia Beach doesn't tend to be very friendly to short-term rentals. The most friendly city right now, in my opinion, is Norfolk. And they have specific areas that they try to shuttle it. It's pretty competitive. I'm not trying to say it's not workable or doable, but the kind of the hot season or the season to really go after it was probably 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. They're limited pickings. I do have 2 that are off market deals right now of a guy who's trying to sell it. One is a quadplex and one is I think 18 unit apartment building. If that's something that's in your price range or something that you're wanting to explore, they do land in the Norfolk area that can be allowed for medium term and short term rentals. Just email me and I'll send you details.
Cool. And then Christian had that question about Waterfront Hampton.
All right. So I'm just gonna kind of admit that in general, Buckrow Beach is probably my favorite area for waterfront. I really wish Trulia hadn't have played the politics game of getting rid of their crime map, because their crime map was absolutely pretty fantastic. There are areas of Hampton, there are areas of Newport News, there are areas of Norfolk, areas of Virginia Beach, but make sure you look at crime stats first. Buckrow Beach tends to be pretty great though, if you're looking for waterfront. I don't know if that's because you don't want to deal with the tunnel, but this area right here is pretty fantastic. And I don't think it's much more limited here. There's just not as many options. So I think that might be the area maybe you're exploring. The options in here don't tend to be nearly as nice in my opinion. I think the best waterfront stuff here is right here in and around Buckrow Beach. Is there deep water access with access to the bay in other cities?
That wasn't much of a question. I think he was just kind of talking about.
I tried to develop there, but it didn't grow at the same rate. How do I feel about this?
Where specifically are you talking about, Christian?
In other cities? Yes. I mean, like if you go into here in Suffolk, there you can kind of see where people have built out. There's actually a decent amount of new construction going on in here, like the Bennett's Creek area, Sleepy Hole area up here in the northern section along the riverfront. There's a lot of new construction in here, and for a reason. I mean, come in here and look, boom, all of that's deep water access. All of this is deep water access. But it's pretty competitive. I think if I was looking, I probably would look at Smithfield and Carrollton and maybe up in here. For development, there's just, I think, more opportunities. I think it's very challenging. A lot of the established builders here are very entrenched and been here for a while. I'm not trying to scare you away, but it tends to be very competitive. Any other questions there, Sean?
No, just a
cool
comment from Christian was saying, yeah, they're really trying to eliminate the short-term rentals in the Virginia Beach.
I have a few inside sources into that. A couple of attorney friends of mine who are in the short-term rental game also know some of the people in the short-term rental decision makers out there. It is unlikely to change anytime soon. I think long-term pressure, depending on how many homeowners want to take advantage of short-term rentals, the more of them that are there, it's going to take a slow turnover for people who want to do that. But North End, Croton Beach, which tend to be the ones anywhere close to the oceanfront, tend to be the ones that people want to do that in. You have a majority of homeowners that don't want to have anything to do with it. They don't want party houses next to their house because, like, I know an attorney that lives in Croton Beach, and he's raising his family there. He does, they had there before basically the association there said no, we don't want this here anymore. He's like, there was a party house next to his house, and it was like he would come out and have to tell people at 1 a.m. to stop being drunk idiots because the kids got to go to school the next day. So I don't think it's likely to change anytime soon. If you want to explore Airbnb, they do have like a grandfathered list that you can look into, but I don't think it's going to change anytime soon in Virginia Beach. Your best option is probably in Norfolk or Chesapeake. Cool. Is that it?
That's everybody.
Cool. I hope everything was helpful. Thanks for tuning in. We got at least 7 people here towards the end. Thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Definitely a recommend on the Ironclad, and throw us a little like or comment or a little thing there for the algorithms. If you're not subscribed already, please subscribe or follow on any of the platforms that you're on. And until next time, cheers.